My name's Jackson Cunningham, and this is the Cunningham Musical Instrument Shop. And we're working on a little small body guitar for the Floyd Country Store and the Handmade Music School. This is a project that we started in the fall and began cutting the back and the braces and stuff and getting this stuff all put together this fall. And we're looking at trying to get this done in the spring sometime. And this is just a little guitar. It's going to go up for auction to benefit the Handmade Music School and the Floyd Country Store. And we just thought we'd show you a little bit about what goes into this guitar and the processes and the woods and all that stuff. This is a typical early 30s bracing pattern, and right now we've glued these on with hot high glue, kind of a rough shape, and we're just going to fine tune the graduations. Number one for the edges is to kind of meet the rims and meet up with the rest of the body, but we're also, this is one of the more critical points of building a guitar, is making a judgment on how stiff this wood is and the weight and the thicknesses and how it all vibrates and stuff. So I'm going to kind of take my time on this and shave these and shape them just how I see fit, how I think that this top really wants to work. And I'll kind of go in here. These are all red spruce, just like the top. And I want to shave these down. Shave them all down so they kind of meet up. Right. And I don't spend a whole lot of time sanding braces. A lot of people do. I mostly do chisel work and planes. And leave it a little bit rough cut. Sometimes I like seeing traces of edge tools better than I do sandpaper, given that my chisels are sharp. Almost all the construction for the guitar is done with hot high glue. That's the norm. That's the traditional violins were put together that way, and steel string guitars in the 20s and 30s and stuff. High glue is kind of the normal. It's easy to work with. It's acoustically, I think it's the best for sound transmission. It can clean up really nicely. You can make it any consistency you want, stronger or weaker, thicker or thinner, and that's what I use. All my guitars and fiddles and banjos. Everything's going to kind of make a difference in tone. You know, the thickness of the top, the braces on how thin they're carved, and how tall and wide they are. Some braces are thicker and lower, and some are taller and skinnier. They kind of taper up. They kind of get skinny. I like them to be skinnier and taller is what I like in a brace. And you basically loosening and tightening the top is what you're doing. You know, you got to make a judgment call on whether you think there's too much, it's too stiff or too loose, and you kind of have a starting point with these braces that you saw out in the table saw, and then you kind of loosen it up with the chisel. You kind of just blend everything in, and that's kind of that's, you know, one of the big things you get with experience is just building a lot of guitars and getting an idea for how they're going to sound. And the brace stock too, you might use brace stock that's, you know, that's a lot harder and denser than others. And so we've used red spruce, the same as the top on this one. And that's all I've ever used is red spruce on all my braces. I think for most instrument makers, guitar makers, this is probably like one of the most like artistic and funnest parts of building an instrument. You know, there's a lot of tedious jobs involved with the whole building process, but I think working with the wood and and something that's so crucial to the sound is pretty fun stuff for me anyhow. The trick on this stuff here is just to try to get it at a good point where it's resonates really good and it's got optimal strength. So, you know, you don't want it too heavy because it won't vibrate and ring, and too thin it won't stand up under the string tension. So we're just trying to tap it and stuff like that, try to kind of tune it. This one sounds pretty good. It's pretty close. This piece of wood here is probably about 5 years old. You just want to make sure that it's nice and dry before you turn it into a guitar. I helped harvest some of this stuff. It's from the mountains in North Carolina. You know, all my musical heroes and stuff played, you know, I mean, Martins and Gibsons and lots of traditional and locally built instruments as well. But that's kind of the main reason I build these things, because of the music. That's what it's inspired by and stuff. And you know, when I first got into building this stuff, it was too expensive to buy my own guitar, so I just figured I'd try to make one. And when I settled here about 15 years ago, I started meeting people in the community and realizing that there was instrument makers all over the place out here. And just like the music and the musicians, there was people who were willing to help me and get me started. And everything from showing me secrets to building to giving me tone wood that they had, and just a real supportive community of people and encouraging to keep the tradition going, you know, to hand it down and make sure it doesn't die out. I grew up in Southern Oregon, and I grew up with a lot of music in my household, and my stepdad was a woodworker and a craftsman. And from the earliest I can remember, there was woodworking projects, you know, everywhere. They logged timber on the property and had a chainsaw mill, and that was, you know, went into building a timber frame house. And so I can remember piles of sawdust and stuff and working out in the shop. And so I've been around it, you know, my whole life, you know, doing woodwork and stuff. And I played music most of my life too. So I think it was just a matter of time before I kind of did the two things kind of blended together. And then when I met Audrey Hasham, that was like the beginning of it. I think she was really super helpful and just encouraging. You know, you go up to her shop and bring something you're working on, and you'd leave feeling like, you know, that thing was worth $1 million or something, you know. I mean, looking back on it, probably wasn't the greatest instrument in the world, but like when I was first starting, it meant the world for her encouragement and stuff like that. And all this wood you see up here, I think just about all this stuff is from the mountains around here. Some of this stuff's Virginia, from just right up here. North Carolina, some's from West Virginia. And this particular piece on this one, I think it's from Maggie Valley, North Carolina. And it's I think red spruce about all I've used on these little LOs. It's a really good tone wood. And that's Honduran mahogany. I kind of picked out as a nice looking piece that would look good. Kind of the standard that they were using in the 30s. It's still fairly easy to get. It's really easy to work with, and it's a good resonant wood. So I got a whole stash of this wood. I got this from a couple fellows, Matt and Nathan Hampton. They work with John Arnold, and they source a lot of this red spruce. A lot of it's old growth or second growth red spruce. I don't know if it was this actual piece, but most of this stuff I got, I went down there and helped them cut it, and most of this stuff it's like growing on like sides of like mountains and stuff where I guess they couldn't get helicopters in. It was too dangerous to log it, back in the 20s. So we went in by hand. We rode four-wheelers up there and then hiked down the side of the mountain and cut these billets of timber, which a billet is kind of like a 2-foot piece of wood, chopped into quarters or something like that. It's super wet, so super heavy, but we'd put it in backpacks and just hike it off the side of these mountains. And it was pretty brutal. It's all kind of selective logging too. It's low impact. We're just hiking in there and taking a tree out from here and here. But I like having that connection to it. It's local wood, and it's air dried, so it's cut and it's dried. It's not kiln dried. It's just set aside for years to dry. And it makes really good guitars, and I made fiddles out of it too. So now we're gonna take this mahogany neck, and I've already done kind of fit this in already, but as you can see here, I got it roughed out and fit to the body here. I don't know if you can kind of see that, but it's kind of curly mahogany to kind of fit the back and sides, and we just fit that in there and make a nice strong joint right there. That's a piece of Brazilian rosewood, kind of a fancy showpiece for all you Gibson lovers. Rosewood fretboard there, and so we got that nice and fit in there. We'll take it over and we'll carve on a little bit. A neck like this, typically what I do with a customer who wants somebody orders a guitar or something, a lot of times, like I said, they could go out and buy an old vintage guitar, but really to personalize it, one of the main things that they're going to ask for is the neck to be exactly how they like it. So I'll get like a set of measurements from somebody. I typically ask somebody just to measure a guitar they really like on the neck, and just measure the dimensions of it, how wide it is, how thick it is. And then I got like a series of little templates that I use for different guitars that I've copied them from, heel templates and stuff like that that's off a 1933 L5. All sorts of stuff that I use to get that just right, and then I'll typically just try to get a measurement down here and get another one up here, and just start working it down until it feels like it's right. Whether somebody wants a V-neck or they want a C profile, or they want it thicker on this end. It's just, that's all super personalized and custom stuff. I've got kind of a standard slight V that I do that I feel is real comfortable for most people. And then, somebody could go buy a 1930s guitar if they wanted an old guitar, but if you want something that suits your hands just perfect, You know, if you have trouble finding an old guitar that just, you know, oh, I love the sound of it, but the neck just doesn't feel right, you know, that's, I think, one of the reasons why you have somebody custom build you an instrument, because we can do the neck exactly the way you want it. So this one, I'll probably do like a standard slight V. So this stuff, I mean, this stuff is kind of what I enjoy the most, the woodworking aspect, building guitars. It's kind of like the rough framing or something. You can really make progress real fast and you can really see it. And I'm really excited about this guitar. I think it's gonna be a really nice project, and we're looking forward to it.